welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Laura. I am so happy to be here. Good morning, everybody. It's great to hear everyone chatting away, and there's a bit more excitement, I think, about what's happening. We're hopefully coming out of lockdown, those of us who are in Melbourne. So, yes, so this morning, this is what we're going to be covering. Oh, why is this not going forwards? That's bizarre. My apologies.
Just click on your PowerPoint and then it will change slides.
Yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah, normally it works in the other way. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is what we're going to look at this morning. So we're going to look at the background for what confidence and presence actually looks like, and also what gets in our way. And then we've got 4 techniques, 4 things that I'm going to talk about. And you can use these ideas both on and offline. So we'll look at social perception, how we give our first impression if we first meet somebody. I've got a technique for you. We've got a mindset reframe as well, which is called self-priming. I don't know if you've heard of self-priming, so this is a really interesting one. Then I'm going to talk about the 2 vital E's, and then I'm going to finish up with some extra on-screen tips for you. And I'm going to move quite quickly because I have quite a lot to cover, because I get excited about all this and I think, oh, I really want you to know this stuff. But I'm also really keen that if you have questions throughout, pop them in the chat, and I'm happy to be interrupted and answer questions as we go. So feel completely free to do that. Okay, quick thought on my background. Today's not about me, but just it's sometimes useful to know where I've come from. So I was originally a classical pianist. I was always suffered performance anxiety, but I was doing okay. And then I got very ill in my 20s and I didn't leave the house for 3 months, literally didn't go out, couldn't be on stage. And when I went back on stage, I had lost my nerve. I couldn't bear being looked at. I couldn't play the piano properly. I used to play wrong notes, and I also couldn't speak in public. So my way back to getting on stage, because I was going to lose my career, was actually learning how to speak in public. And I was terrible at that too. And I used to gulp and swallow in the middle of sentences, and I was so stressed I couldn't look people in the eye. So I've kind of learned how to do that. And gradually I morphed into helping other people, and then this has now become my full-time business, although I still play the piano for fun. So I don't, Chris Marinakis, who I know is a big part of Whitehorse, that's me at the Quest there, Quest Mont Albert, where I run all of my live workshops. Haven't been doing them this year, but that's where they're normally run. So Chris has been a great support to me with all of my live events as well. All right, so let's define confidence quickly, just so we know we've got a baseline. So this is how I would define feeling confident. Okay, so we've got an internal, then we go, okay, this is what I think will happen externally. I believe that this, like this morning, I got up and I thought, I feel that this, this will go well. I believe that this event will go well. But I have the self-worth, this is the goal anyway, that I have the self-worth to say, if there isn't a positive outcome, I'm still okay. So that's my overall total concept of confidence. Let's look at presence. So it means that we're very present, we're authentic, we're fully in the moment, and we've got access to what it is that we're trying to do. So we're not overwhelmed by nervousness or discomfort. And by the way, I also want to say that these techniques, you can use them at any level. You might be really quite stressed about speaking and about presenting yourself, whether you're networking or whether you're pitching for business or whether you're just online giving an event. Or you might actually be really quite confident, and you can take these at any level because you can work with them no matter where you are. So, and this is a photograph of Walt Whitman, who is a US 19th century poet. And for some reason my slides are not working again. This is just bizarre. One moment it works, the next minute it doesn't. Let me go again. There we go. So Walt Whitman said we convince by our presence. Okay. So if we think about convincing by our presence, let's look at what we can do. This is one of my models, and obviously this has a lot in it. Today we're going to be looking at the top idea around how we think, how we look, how we sound. We're also going to look a little bit at the right-hand side circle about energy that we can use and connection with our audience. And I'm going to assume that the left-hand circle is in place for you, that you know what you're talking about, that you feel competent about what you're doing. It is possible to have confidence and presence without competence. A lot of people are able to do that. I'm not one of those people. If I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, I lose all my sense of control and confidence about what I'm doing. But if we really want to know what we're, to feel that real level of confidence, we want to feel as though we know exactly what we're doing and we're ready for that. Okay, so what gets in the way of confidence and presence? I've got a spectrum here for you. So on the left-hand side, we worry about what people think of us. That's huge. On the other side, I know some people like this, it's not all that common, but some people out there, they really don't care what people think of them. They're totally happy, they're just doing their own thing. And I think it's very good to have a sense of, I'm in the middle, I'm comfortable, I'm adaptable, I'm authentic, I have a sense of confidence, and I'm not worried about what people are thinking about me, but I am aware of what they're thinking about me. And this is a good thing because it actually means that I'm taking other people into account. I'm looking at their responses when I'm talking, when I'm presenting. Not so easy on Zoom though, because I'm just kind of looking at the screen now. But if I was specifically in a room, or I had a whole Zoom screen full of people and I was just looking at you, I would be gauging what's going on and working that one out. So a quick list for you. I'll be quiet for a moment and let you just have a look at that list. This is what gets in our way. And we can have a combination of these things. Some people only have one. The fear of being judged is huge. That's just completely human. We do fear being judged because we need to be accepted in order to survive in our tribe. And if we're ostracized, we're in trouble. And we could basically boil these ideas down into three different categories. From a psychology perspective, we want to be liked. Most of us want to be liked. Some people have a very strong sense of wanting to achieve, and other people have a strong need for control, and they feel like if I haven't got my act together, I've failed, and this is not going to work. And this is what I call the 3 circles of disconnection. And I would love, if you want to, type in the chat, you don't have to, but if you think about the 3 different aspects of speaking, communicating with anybody, there are 3 different areas that are involved in this. I'm going to tell you what they are in a moment, but if anyone wants to have a guess or unmute and shout out, I'm very happy to hear what you think any of those words might be. The 3 different areas of public speaking. I'll give you a second.
The T could be tone.
Oh, I like it, Laura. Yeah, actually it's not, but that is a good one. Tone is really important, yeah, because tone shows emotionally how we're feeling and how we're feeling about being with that person and in the room.
Okay. Laura's mentioned audience.
Audience, yeah, absolutely, it's audience. Audience is the top one. And then you've got your topic, and then you've got yourself. So if you're not connected to any of these areas, you're not likely to be feeling that full sense of confidence and presence that you could truly be with. And if you've got trouble with all of those areas and you feel disconnected from all of them, say you're not interested in your topic or you're bored by your topic, or you feel disconnected from yourself physically, you're not breathing, you're not grounding, you can have mind blanks when that happens, or you feel disconnected from your audience, or you're afraid of your audience, or you've got hierarchy in the audience, which is, unfortunately, we're wired that way. So if there are people who are senior to us or people who we feel we need to influence or impress, that can really mentally get in our way. So let's think about this. Walt Whitman's quote was, "We convince by our presence." So let's think about how can we convince? And in order to convince other people, we also need to be convincing ourselves. So these tools work for all of these things. So if we think about when we first meet people, this is first impressions, and this is universal in terms of psychological principles. Psychologists don't usually agree about everything, but this particular concept, it's universal, it's across all cultures. They agree that these 2 things are the most important. And again, I'll just get you to think about what those 2 words might be. You're welcome to shout out if you want to unmute, or type in the chat. Don't worry, this isn't going to be letters and numbers game the whole way through. I've just got a little moment where I like to get you thinking about what this might be. So these are the things that we judge people on when we first meet them. We judge them on their warmth and their competence. And that basically means when I see someone walking towards me, or I meet them for the first time, I look at them and I go, are they friendly towards me? And are they competent? And the definition of competence is, are they capable of carrying out what they've come to do? So if you're going in to a meeting and you're pitching for business and you're meeting someone for the first time, your body language, we're going to come to this in a moment, has to be strong, but not overpowering. But you've got strong, good body language, and you're friendly and warm. And in terms of the psychology of it, out of the two things, the most important one is the warmth. Because if I came onto this webinar today and I was stern but competent, you would not want to engage with me, and you would think that was really weird as well. And I'm not saying anybody does that, but when we're nervous, we can forget to be warm because we're nervous, and we forget to smile. That's really common when I work with speakers who are nervous. They don't smile, their face goes very blank, and they really struggle with that element. Warmth is important. And remember here that I'm talking about coming across to other people. I am not suggesting for a moment that you are not a warm or competent person. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, are you showing that to other people? That's what it's about. So if we want to show more warmth, these are the things that we would do to help that. Open body language, you probably know this one. It's a pretty obvious one. It's about not hiding, preferably not hiding. If you're in a room with people, don't hide behind furniture, don't hide if you can. That's why people, when they're speaking at an event, will often not start behind the lectern. If they may go back to the lectern if they have notes or they want to do that, but they will start in the middle of the room or in front of the audience because they're showing their whole body, and that creates trust and shows trust. The love and caring triggers, now that might sound a bit woo-woo, but it's actually not. The idea behind this is that you can, if you're not in a good mood, like let's say you've had a really bad day, but you have to go to an event and you've got to be like, here I am. You can fake that, but you know how people can always tell? There's that sense, there's that energy and the vibe around people when we're not completely happy and comfortable with what we're doing. We can actually make that real by doing this particular thing. And that would be, and if I were in a room with you right now, I'd get you in pairs and I'd get you turning to each other. And I'd get you to talk about something that's quite serious, quite dull, quite bland. And then I'd get you to flip and I'd get you to talk about your partner, your child, your pet, anything in the world that makes you feel loving and warm towards that person. And you would find that the moment you switch, your eyes change, you get soft eyes. In Aikido, in Japanese Aikido, martial arts, they talk about having hard eyes to your opponent or soft eyes. And we always want soft eyes. So your eyes would change, your tone, Laura, you mentioned tone earlier, your tone would change. And your whole demeanor changes. And it's like, I'm really pleased to be here. And this leads me to the third one. You're extending goodwill. And some clients have found this really useful. You can verbalize it or you can feel it. But it's basically saying, I'm really glad that you're here and I'm really glad that I am here. And as soon as we do that, everyone's happy. Like at the start, when I started today, I said I was really pleased to be here. Now, and of course, we all want to think that everyone feels that way, but it's not a bad thing to actually verbalize it and say it and really feel it as you're saying it. So what we're really trying to do is we're trying to turn towards people. Because again, there's this principle that we only have two choices when we communicate with somebody. If you think about someone, I know that you're not really at work necessarily at the moment, but if you were at work and you're walking down the corridor and you see a colleague come towards you, or they pop up on the Zoom screen, and you don't like that person, you're going to turn away from them, metaphorically. Hopefully not literally, but you're going to turn away from them metaphorically. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to engage with you, not interested. Or you can turn towards that person because you do like them, you do want to engage with them. And we've only got two choices. There's no neutral. There is never a neutral. You think about it. Every conversation you have, every presentation you give, you look at that audience and you make a choice. It's usually subconscious. Unless you're really nervous, in which case you're literally turning away and you don't want to be there. It's like, I'm not here. But you want to turn towards those people, and that's a deliberate choice, and we always have that choice in the moment. Unless we're hijacked completely by our emotions, we have that choice. If we want to project more competence, a couple of thoughts around this one. Claiming social space is what we're trying to do. That's what's really important, and that means we take up time when we speak. We take up space with our body. We're not hiding, we're not shrinking. Because if we do feel that we lack confidence and presence, we will shrink. Our mind contracts, our thoughts contract, and our body also contracts. So We're trying to do the opposite. We're not overbearing and being overwhelming and overdoing it, because that has been shown to really put people off, and it's kind of, again, it's kind of strange. We're just claiming the space that we are entitled to, because we have the right to that space. So a few things here for you. You want to be consistent verbally, and that means that you don't change your pitch or your tone. You're not moving around too much. So you're not high and then you're not low, you're not moving around. It's like, I'm just staying really consistent. And if you think about people who have real presence and authority, if we went right up to top level and we thought about maybe, royalty or CEOs, whatever it is, they're very consistent. They don't show a lot of variation. And if you're trying to be competent, that's actually what you want. It's not always enormously engaging, that's a different topic, but it is competent. So you don't move much either. So you stay quite still, because the people who have the power, they're not the ones flailing around, they're the ones in the middle holding that space. Ground yourself, feel your feet. Don't be afraid of silence. A lot of people who are nervous, they're always filling the silences, and that used to be me. I was like, I can't cope with the silence. I need to speak. I need to fill that with nervous chatter. And it took me a while to learn, and it's one of the things I teach so much with people, is that you've just got to own that silence. Don't be afraid of it. Let it hang there. Practice it if you need to. If you're making key points and you really want people to get something, wait after you say it. Don't be afraid of that. And in that silence, you can also breathe, which is really important. And if you want something to do while you're feeling that groundedness and that silence, you can squeeze your toes. If you want to wait for like 2 seconds to let a point land, 2 or 3 seconds, you squeeze your toes once per second. And it gives your brain something to do, so you don't worry about it. It works really, really well. And if you're nervous in any situation, feeling your feet, it's an actor's technique, is really useful. So I talked about breathing just a moment ago. Let me just say a small amount more about breathing. I'm aware of the time. So we need to really focus on our breath in order to convince ourselves that we're okay. And you'd be aware of this around extremes like panic attacks, things like that. But it gives us so many different things. It's our anchor to the present moment. It's just so crucial. You may or may not know about the vagus nerve. So we have this nerve that goes from the back of our brain stem, and it goes right down into all of our major organs. It's a really important nerve, and they're doing an enormous amount of research on it at the moment. It's so exciting what they're up to. And it goes into our heart, it goes into our lungs, goes into our gut. So if you're feeling nervous and your stomach's starting to go, it's actually sending signals back up to your brain. It goes both ways. And you impact the vagus nerve. It's like, we could think of it, if we're stressed or we're rushing, it's like we're going down the freeway at 110 kilometers an hour. And the vagus nerve, breathing impacts that vagus nerve, and it's like putting the brake on that stress. It's that important. And what we're after is a slower rhythm, obviously, low down, not upper shallow chest breathing, and a longer exhale is what tells our system that we're safe. And the vagus nerve, this low, slow, longer exhale, also does these things. So it's just that powerful. It's something people sometimes say to me, I've tried breathing, it doesn't work. And I used to think the same thing. You need to practice it if you're not a good breather. And by the way, there's also something called, if we're on screens a lot, there's something called screen apnea, which is like a take on sleep apnea. And it's this idea that when we're looking at a screen, not only are we not blinking enough, but we're also not breathing properly. And you may not be aware of that, but I actually sometimes put up post-its going, breathe, when I'm online for a long time, because we just don't breathe. We do the minimum to keep ourselves alive and upright. And that is really bad for our system. Most adults don't breathe properly. So I stress that one because it really works. But if you are a person who's nervous and you want to access it, when we are stressed out, we downgrade to survival mode. So the breathing will only work if you practice it, and then you can access it. So my technique for you on this one is what I've called AIR. So it's awareness, intention, reset. And you can use this anytime. people who do really high performance work in any area, it might be sport or business, whatever it is, they are deliberately intentional about what they're doing. So we go with the awareness, okay, how am I feeling right now? Okay, I'm stressed. So you don't avoid that, you don't ignore it, you don't push it away. It's like holding a beach ball down in the sea. The more you try and push that ball down into the sea, the more it's going to bounce up at you. So you don't push it away and say, no, 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 I'm okay, and then get hit with it. You go, no, okay, you label it. This is also very effective. You say, you label how you're feeling, just briefly. You say, yeah, okay, I'm nervous about this. I feel stressed about this. Then you flip to, how would I prefer to feel? Okay, I want to use this energy in a better way for myself, for example. And then you reset. 60 seconds is ideal, but even one low, slow breath with a resetting of how you want to feel can make a huge difference. Now, I'm moving through quickly here because I really want you to get this information, but this content, all of it, is really powerful. It's research-based. I've used it with so many people. I use it myself. It really works. So just because I'm moving through quickly doesn't mean that any of these can't be looked at and really thought about. So don't dismiss any of them is what I'm saying. I know, because I have been known to do that. I'll be on a webinar and I'm like, oh yeah, I know that, I've heard that before. Yes, you've heard it before, but I promise you, rethink it, because it just might give you something new and different. Okay, moving on to tool number 3, and this is heavily research-based. I'll just let you read this for one brief moment. And by the way, everyone's so silent. If you have any questions, I know I'm not stopping, but feel free to ask questions. Otherwise, feel free to ask at the end. So there's a very good researcher in the US called Kelly McGonigal, and she's done a TED Talk as well. By the way, you can look her up if you're interested in her. And she talks about stress. That's her thing that she does. And she talks about the 2 types of performance stress that we can have. So we either have this threat response, and this is what we do. We're trying to avoid harm, or we feel as though we're going to be physically attacked, and our system becomes oversensitive and it really causes us trouble. This is what we're aiming for instead. This is what we try and move to. So this is what we're after. Okay, so we've got the 2 side by side here. And it is possible to move yourself from the threat response, if that's how you're feeling, into a challenge response, which is an opportunity to go after something. Because that's what we're after, isn't it? We're trying to get a result from interacting in whatever that is, online or offline. All of these things work. So let me give you one of the key ways to do this in terms of the research. Self-priming. Now, I show you those words. You look at those words. We do priming, self-priming, all day. We are constantly being primed by our environment. Adverts are just priming. That's what they're doing. They're trying to move us in a particular direction. If you were to contemplate those words and keep thinking about those words, you would start to move in that direction. If, on the other hand, I'm going to do this briefly, you looked at these words and you started to move in that direction and dwell on those thoughts, your system would start to go downhill. So we are constantly moving away and towards what it is that we want, what we don't want. So 2 ways to do this. You want to be self-priming towards the challenge response rather than the threat. You can go narrow. You can think about one previous event where you felt really strong. You felt like, yeah, I've nailed this, I've got this, whatever it was. It might be the day you graduated, day you got married, the day you really succeeded at something, you got the job you really wanted, you got the big deal that you'd wanted. You think about that and you re-access that in your system. And remember that our body can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. So it's like a memory or a daydream about something you want to happen. Your system starts to move in that direction. So you think about a personal event. It doesn't have to be anything to do with communicating, and you think about that. Or you can go wide. And that means that you create what I call a prior competence map. And for this, and this is proven to be hugely successful, particularly for women, They haven't worked out why yet, but it is more around women than men, but it can still be useful. I've certainly known men find this useful too. You think about all the different areas of your life where you are successful, where you feel like, yeah, I can do this. And that might be, cooking a curry, or being good to your neighbour, or, I'm a good mum in this particular way, or a good parent, or anything like that. And you think about that before you start to speak. And what that does, it's proven to work because it gets you to think about yourself as a multifaceted human being, rather than, oh my God, I'm a speaker in this next half hour and I have to get it right, and that's all I am. So it's allowing you to access more this presence idea of having full access to who you are. It allows you to go there. All right, tool number 4. We're nearly there. We've got 5 tools, so I'll move through this one quickly. Convincing ourselves and convincing other people. Very important to have. I'll get you to look at this. Very important to have these elements. And if we're nervous, we need to use this. So the first one I'm going to tell you is energy. Second one is enthusiasm. And the third one is emotion. And I'll tell you something here around emotion that you may not be aware of. We don't remember things that we don't attach emotion to. So let me flip that. We only remember what we attach emotion to. So if you want people to remember what it is that you're talking about, you want to make an impact, you want to make an impression, you need to show emotion yourself, and you need to create emotion in your audience or the person listening to you. So that's all around the humanizing. And there's the 2 sides of what we need. One is data, facts, really important to convince people. But we also need emotions, and often that's through storytelling, which is, a completely new topic, which I'm not going there today, obviously. But, all of these 2 elements, they need to combine. And most people that I come across who have trouble with their confidence or their presence, they're not using enough energy and they're not using enough enthusiasm. And you may think you're being enthusiastic, but I would, and you may well be, you may be just someone who is, but for most people, especially through a screen, you need to be more enthusiastic and more energetic than you think. Now, not all the way through, because that can be exhausting if you're just sort of going rah at people the whole time, but you need more enthusiasm than you think, because it takes about 50% more energy to get through a screen than it does to just be with someone in person. And I'm sure over these last months that perhaps you've become very aware of that. I'm an introvert. I'm not a big screen person. I like to meet people face to face, but I also get quite drained. So if I'm on Zoom calls all day, my energy levels will be, they really start to drop. I need to be very careful to keep those energy levels up, and they help us again to expand. And if you're nervous anyway, you've got nervous energy, so don't push it down. Remember the beach ball in the sea. Don't push it down and suppress it. It will only bounce back up more strongly and hit you in the face. Use it. Use the energy and use it to go, I'm really pleased to be here. I'm thrilled with what we're doing, and I really enjoy my topic. And if you don't enjoy your topic, dig deep and find something about it that you do. Even if it's only the money that you hopefully are going to earn from talking about that topic. But find something that gets you going and gets you excited. All right. So remember those things: energy, enthusiasm, and emotion. All right, here we go. My last thoughts for you, and we're going to zip through these because they're quite straightforward. Just be careful, and I'm sure you're all doing this by now if you're online and you're on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever you're on, but just make sure you're looking at the green dot on your laptop or your desktop or whatever, because it's just, we want that eye contact. We want to feel we're really engaging, and it's only by looking at the green dot that you're going to get that. If you tend to forget and you tend to look down or look at the faces, you can always put a little post-it note up with an arrow or your eyes reminding you to look at that. You make the opening about other people, you make it about them, you connect with them, and then you carry them. And that's going to give you confidence because you know that you're connecting rather than just launching about your own stuff, which is never so successful. You connect with them and then you carry. You probably need to practice. For most people, especially if you're nervous or you feel as though you lack presence, practicing the opening of what you're trying to say, even almost to the point of memorizing your first couple of sentences, can be really useful, so that you're not just knowing vaguely what you want to say, but you're not sure what's going to come out of your mouth, and then you can get thrown off by that. But don't memorize it if you think you're going to forget and it's going to throw you off. I'm not saying that. You don't want that. For some people, it's the opposite. If you can get a conversation going with the people that you're talking to and then slide straight into your presentation, that can also work really well. But either way, you need to practice well enough to know what you're talking about to be able to get that across. And most people, because they're either bored with it or they're not, they don't want to do it, or they don't have the time, they don't practice enough. Potentially, don't be afraid to use more slides. You know, people get very hung up if you're online about the number of slides, or indeed in a room, but don't be afraid of that. You can use as many slides as you need, because we're engaged by visual, and the more things that move on the screen. I mean, you don't want to be animating every line. I did quite a lot of building and animating of slides today because, well, for a couple of reasons, but also in terms of engagement, but also to keep things flickering along so that you can see things changing. If you want to only speak and not have people look at your slide, remember you can do the B or the W key, which blanks out, whites out, or blacks out your screen, and then they're just focusing on your face. If you've got a really key point you want to make, that can be a useful trick. And also, you may be able to stand up. If you feel like you want to use that energy, you want more presence, and you're better standing up. I worked with a guy doing an interview last week, and he'd never thought of standing up for the interview, which was online. And he said, oh my gosh, that will make such a difference. So if you're someone who's better standing, even if you're online, do feel free to stand up. All right, we are done basically. So this is what we've covered today. So in a moment, let's go with questions. But I have one final question for you, and it's this one. Have a think about this. Deceptively simple really works. That's like a quick, instant shift, because it allows you to detach from yourself. That's one reason psychologically why it works. Okay, my final thoughts. Just letting you know that LinkedIn tends to be more my platform than Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook person, but LinkedIn is where I post a lot of content and ideas and posts that are useful and practical. So if you are on LinkedIn and you're interested, feel free to connect with me under Sarah Denholm. And I have different options, individual coaching and training, special offer at the moment for individuals because of COVID. So feel free to go to my website and have a look. All right, that's me done. So Laura, or anyone else, any questions, any thoughts on anything that I've done? I have zapped through a lot of stuff for you, but I believe it would have been useful for you.
That was